Hello, my friends, and welcome. This is Acquisitional Wealth, episode number 12, and I'm so glad you're here. My name is Josh Tolley. I'm the founder and chairman of Kingsbridge. It's a BSA. It's a brokerage service and advisory company, the first in North America of its kind. And I really love Acquisitional Wealth. I have this podcast, I have the book coming out, and of course, the Facebook page, which if you have not joined yet, I definitely recommend you do. Absolutely free, no commitments. But it's with all these people who love talking about these topics and going into in depth about these issues. And we also do podcast follow-up shows for our Facebook group, and our page. So definitely join us there. If this happens to be your first time joining Acquisition Wealth Podcast, I would strongly recommend going back to episode number 1 and starting there and then binge watching them all because they kind of build off of each other. So make sure you do that. And of course, subscribe and share and all that wonderful social media stuff that I know you know how to do. All right, so for those of you who are watching the video stream of this, I have on my Kingsbridge jersey because this is really a great dovetail off of episode 11, which was talking about your team. And we're going to talk about today working with a broker. It's by far one of the biggest questions that I get, and your team should really be comprised of a transaction attorney and a broker at minimum, and usually a really good due diligence transactional accountant too. And we're going to talk about all these as the show progresses, but I definitely wanted to make sure that episode 12, we take some time and talk about what is it like to work with a broker. And I'm going to base it off of some of the most common questions that I get regarding that fact. So one of those questions is, why shouldn't I just do it on my own without a broker and save all that money? And by it, meaning buying or selling a business. That's a really, really great question. There's a lot of books and experts out there who think that working without a broker is a smart thing to do. It's not impossible. It's not. I've done it way before I was a broker. So it's not impossible. It is extremely difficult, though. And typically what will happen, and I mean this is no offense, but typically what will happen is a lot of these people who will tell you, buy a business without a broker, they're probably going to tell you to buy what would really be classified as income-producing real estate. So things like laundromats or car washes or vending machines or, something like that. And there's a whole litany of why you still need a broker for those transactions too. A whole litany of reasons why. A lot of expensive mistakes have been made by people who decided, well, I'm just going to go out and buy a business because I read a book or I watched the video or I attended a $15,000 weekend course or something. And it's just danger. It's just dangerous. But why should you do it? Wouldn't it save you money? And the answer is no. Typically, if you're dealing with a good broker, and there's asterisk next to that, right? If you're dealing with a good broker, if you are a buyer, the broker is going to save you both time and money. Yep. Well, Josh, doesn't the broker just want to get the biggest commission possible? No, not really. Not if they're a good broker. What they want is that ongoing, long-lasting relationship. I know that that's a major focus of ours because we do more than just broker the business. We're not interested in, making as big of a dollar as we can off of a transaction. It's more about that long-term relationship, especially because we're the only brokerage that really has coined the phrase flip to fortune. And we'll do a whole episode on that, so don't worry. But no. And if you're selling the business, same thing. A broker can typically get you more. And much more creative too. And that's one of the biggest things I would say are the advantages of working with a broker. It's that creativity, that ability to not just treat this like real estate. And that is a problem with bad brokers, but we'll get to that in a second. But not to treat it like real estate and say, well, they're asking $1.5 million. Will you give them $1.4 million? Yeah, he'll give you $1.4 million. Well, she'll take $1.4 million. Yay, we're done. That's like selling real estate. That's not what buying a business should really look like. When you buy a business, you should be going for what the business really provides to you in terms of value. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, the difference between value and price. But that's really what you should be focused on. And when you look at it that way, working with a broker can mean the difference between $10, $20 million by the time you retire, way less stress, and a lot of protections too. I know one of the things that I've done and my team has done as brokers is find those hidden worries that most people would not even know to look for. One of the biggest examples was the guy who bought a restaurant, not realizing that they were going to do construction on the major thoroughfare right in front of his restaurant for 2 years. And yeah, there's things like Uber and Uber Eats and DoorDash, but when construction takes out the road in front of your restaurant, that's an expensive mistake that you should have looked into. And your lawyer's not going to look into that. Your accountant's not going to look into that. The coach or mentor online isn't going to look into that for you for sure. And if you're not experienced doing this, meaning if it's your first 1, 2, 3 purchases, you wouldn't have even thought to look for it. And that's not just one example either. Up in Indiana, there was a guy who bought a Cane's chicken finger franchise. And then once it was built and opened, realized that because of where he put the business, he wasn't allowed to sell chicken at a chicken restaurant. And I'm not kidding. Like, it happens all the time. But all these people are like, I can do it myself and save myself some money. Nope, you're going to cost yourself money. This isn't like buying a car. It's not even like buying a house. I believe there's a role for realtors, but let's be honest, in a modern society, you could buy a house without a realtor. You go off of comps, you get an appraiser, you get an inspector, you make an offer. Yep, you could do that. Buying a business is nothing like that. Nothing. Especially if you're buying a functioning business and not just income-producing real estate. There are a lot of moving pieces. Our checklist is 11-point font, and it's like page after page after page after page of things that we go through and review. So it's not this simple, I'm just going to cut out the broker and make some money. Nope, you're going to cost yourself. You're going to cost yourself money. You're going to cost yourself time. And what's more kind of important to that is you're going to realize that the things that come back and bite you as a business owner are not the things that you notice 1 month after owning it or even 1 year after owning it. Typically, the things that come back and bite you are 3, 4, 5 years after purchasing the business. And that's when those little things start to pop up. And by then, it's too late. It's too late. A lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Oh man, I wish I would have used a broker. Yeah, well, but that's why. I mean, don't think about this as a budgetary, how do I save every penny? How do I pinch every corner sort of purchase? Again, you're not buying a car, you're not buying a house. This is an income producing acquisition that should be treated with as much respect and due diligence as humanly possible. Does that make sense? I hope so, because I would say probably in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of, learn how to buy a business, read my book on how to buy a business. Look, I've written a book on how to buy businesses, and I tell people point blank in the book, don't just use this book. I mean, that would be stupidity on a stick. You really have to do the right thing. And the right thing is doing what's right for your timeline, for your generational wealth planning, purchasing the business. That whole idea, you make your profit when you buy, not when you sell. That's amplified when it comes to buying a business. So the next most common question, should I use a broker who charges a retainer of some sort? Yes. Again, this kind of piggybacks off of the idea that, well, I don't need a broker at all, right? The same thing is true for brokers that don't charge you anything. This is not real estate. Again, this is not real estate. if a broker isn't going to charge you an upfront retainer, that is a huge, huge, huge red flag. If a client doesn't want to pay a retainer, that's a huge, huge, huge red flag. I don't work with people who refuse to do that. I just don't. Whether I'm buying a business and using another broker to do it, which depending on the situation, I might have to do in certain cases, like the state, or if somebody contacts our firm and says, "Hey, I'll hire you, but I'll just, pay you a commission and, we'll take care of it on the back end." No. It shows a total lack of understanding of what a broker actually does. There's this idea that all a business broker does is find a business, find a buyer, and put the two together, like real estate. No, not even close. Not even close. And if somebody doesn't understand the work that goes into this process, then it's just not worth it. And not only that, if let's say you're a buyer, and because I'm assuming most people who are listening to Acquisitional Wealth happen to be on the buy side. If you're a buyer and you're going to approach a broker and say, "Hey man, this is what I'm looking for. This is my budget. If you have something, let's work a deal." That broker's not going to work a deal. They're going to put you in the list of 500,000 buyers and treat you like a number. And if something someday comes along, then they might float it over to you. But you're not going to be treated seriously, and you're not going to be given time and attention. You're basically just going to be a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and they're going to try to get the highest commission out of you that it's humanly possible. They'll probably give you some contract that results in a commission payment, even if the transaction doesn't come to completion or some crazy evil stuff like that. It's just nuts. It's just nuts what's out there. And on the other side of that, I tell brokers all the time too, avoid customers who are buyers who are like, "Hey man, if you find me something," because you know what they're doing? They're calling every broker saying, "Hey, if you find it, if you find it, if you find it, if you find it," and they don't want to be exclusive. And that kind of leads to the next point. Should you be exclusive with a broker? Abso-stinking-lutely yes. Yep, because it protects you. I know there's this, well, if I have 50 brokers out there all looking for me for a business to buy, I'm going to get a better deal and I'm going to get it faster, right? No, you're just not. Because there's no real relationship there. There's no what's called agency there. There's no commitment. There's no responsibility. You're just another one of, the 500,000 people who read a book about buying a business who now want to go find one. So you're kind of the laughing joke of the industry. And I don't mean that because I don't know you, so don't take this personally, but you just kind of are of this industry of all the wannabes. It's kind of like these buddies who get together and create search funds. Anyway, I could go down a whole tangent behind that. But yes, you should work with a broker who charges a retainer. It's just smart business. How often should you communicate with your broker? Well, different times during the process are going to warrant different frequency of communication. In that initial phase where your broker's gathering some information on businesses that fit within your desired budget or industry or geographical location, you're not going to talk every day. Because it takes some time to find them, vet them, that sort of thing. And this is another reason why you kind of want to try to avoid like the businesses for sale sort of websites. A little side note, a lot of that is the crap that just wouldn't sell traditionally, and it's kind of like a last-ditch effort. It's kind of like chum in a bucket. And a lot of times those are used as lures. I'm old enough to remember newspapers. And in the newspaper, you'd have these car dealers advertised, and they'd be like, "Hey, we have a red Corvette, only $27,000. And then you call for the red Corvette, and they're like, "Well, the red Corvette sold, but I have a Chevy Nova." Same sort of thing. So you try to avoid that. But because of that, it takes some time to percolate some real business leads to buy, as if they rep you as the buyer. So that takes some time. You're not going to talk to them every day. As you get closer, you put in your NDAs to get some financial information, some SIMs or CBRs or whatever your broker's going to call them. But same thing, basically the package of materials. You're going to talk to them a little bit more often, once or twice a week for sure. When it comes closer to actually, going from LOI to close date, you're going to talk to them a lot. It's not uncommon for me to talk to a client every day, the week of a close, 2, 3, 4 times a day, depending on the size of the deal and what has to happen, and just making sure everything happens. And that's one of the indicators too of, are you working with a good broker? Are they just kind of I'll talk to you at close day, and, don't forget to get everything ready. Avoid that. They're just looking at you like a paycheck. A real quality broker should be involved in helping you 100% from start to finish. Kingsbridge is unique because we have after the purchase care too, so we go a little bit further. I don't expect most brokerages to be that high of a standard. So even if they just hold your hand and walk you through every step up until close, that's pretty decent. But they shouldn't be, hey, when you're done, or when you get everything ready, we'll take a picture at the closing. No, this isn't real estate. Again, this is much, much bigger than that, much different industry. So they really should be communicating with you. And I know it's kind of interesting. In the beginning, everybody is like, well, shouldn't you communicate more? I've only heard from you every other week. No. Then at the end, it's like, well, should I be talking to you so much? I've talked to you every day this week. Yes, because this has a pattern. Deals actually have a flow to them. There's this organic sort of rhythm to a deal, and each deal is completely different. And I love this stuff, so I kind of geek out about it. But each deal is completely different. And the more creative your broker had to be to negotiate the deal, the more communication is going to be required. And I know that kind of surprises a lot of brokers in the industry when I say something like that, like, wait a second, creatively structuring deals? Yeah. Again, a lot of brokers treat this like real estate, where they just communicate offers between two parties. And that's pretty much all real estate has become. And we don't view it that way. We view it in a much more intimate, powerful sort of manner. And we say to the buyer or the seller, what is your overall objective? What's the real objective? What are you trying to accomplish? Not in terms of just cash in your pocket. That's cheap and easy. I'm talking about legacy, family planning, generational sort of wealth building. What are you trying to accomplish? And then we structure the entire process around that. And we don't just say, hey, good luck negotiating it. I'll relay information back and forth. Gosh, no. We actually help in the negotiation, the crafting of the deal, the offering of suggestions when it comes to terms and all that sort of stuff. So, obviously that's going to lead to much more communication as you go through the process. So, what if I already know who I would like to buy from or sell to? Do I still need a broker? This one's really common. Matter of fact, I dealt with that this week. This idea of, well, Josh, I would love to use your services, but I already know who I'm going to sell the business to, so I don't need you. This isn't real estate. Finding the buyer and finding the seller and putting them together is the tiniest part of this thing. So I would still highly, 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 highly recommend getting a broker. Not only is it going to be more beneficial to you and to them for both of your respective parties' bottom line and cash flow situations, but the broker's going to act like a gasket to deliver good news and bad news, or changes or requests, stuff like that. The broker's going to be able to kind of vet either the buyer or the seller or the opportunity, walk through the lending process, communicate with the lawyer, probably, if they're experienced as a broker, in a much more professional, concise, speedy manner, which actually saves you a lot of time too if you're talking about billable hours with accountants or attorneys. There's just a plethora of reasons as to why you should be working with a broker, even if you know who you're going to sell to or buy from. But one of the biggest ones, in addition to those that I've listed, one of the biggest ones is really what happens if the deal doesn't go through? And this is extremely, extremely common, where you think, okay, I'm going to sell it to Bob, and Bob's already offered a price of, say, $1 million, and we already know, so we're just going to paper this thing and be done with it. And then, lo and behold, the bank doesn't value your business at the $1 million, so Bob can't get a loan for the $1 million, so now what do you do? Now what do you do? And if you don't do this for a living, you probably are like, well, then I guess I can't sell it for $1 million, right? No, that's not it at all. If you had a broker, the broker could come in and kind of restructure the deal, save the deal, if possible. Let's say the valuation come in at $1 million, so you're good there, but Bob, all of a sudden, something in his past or whatever, can't get approved for the financing. Now what? Do you still want to sell? Did you already tell the employees that you were going to sell and now you're not? Did you make that mistake? Did you already let the public know that you were going to be selling? Like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Find some people who have sold their businesses, and if they're okay with it, review the deal with a broker and be like, because what blows my mind is you'll meet people and they'll be like, oh, I negotiated my own deal. It went great. And then I'll look at the deal and I'll be like, Bubba, one, you left about $280,000 on the table. Two, you have no protection from if anything comes back to slap you. Three, if he fails, you didn't even put in here a clause where you could get the business back. You can do that? Yeah. There's so many things that people think they did a good job because they have nothing to compare it to. Again, unlike real estate where everybody and their brothers bought a house, you have nothing to compare it to. How many people do you know sell 20 or 30 businesses a year? So even if you're like, well, I know a friend down the street who had a suntanning business and he sold that 12 years ago. That's not a good example. That's not a reference. That's not, you know what I mean? So it's amazing how many deals that I go back and review and I'm like, oh my gosh. Why did you think this was a good deal? Well, I thought I was saving money. No. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And if you pay nothing, just saying. So anyway, that's kind of it for the topic. And then I wanted to kind of close this episode out with how can you tell good brokers from bad brokers? And this is not a self-promotion plug because we're not able to operate in all states as brokers. Different states have different rules. So this isn't like, hey, wherever you are, call me and I can help you. Nope. It's not how it works. You can call us, and we have friends in the industry that we might be able to hook you up with in different states. So certainly call us. But this isn't like a plug just for us. Does that make sense? Because here's the reality. A lot of this industry is still very wild, wild west. The sad part of that is that it doesn't take expertise or experience to become an expert these days. Anybody can start a vlog. Anybody can write a book. Anybody can say they're an expert. And because the general population's knowledge of this industry is so little that somebody who just read a book about how to buy a business can say, well, now I know how to do it. I'm an expert. I'm going to make videos on it. And it really kind of screws this whole industry up. And that is magnified by people who become brokers because in many states, there's no requirement at all to be an intermediary. And internationally, it's even worse. So there are a lot of people out there who are just like, well, I'll do it. I'm a pretty smart person. I'll do it. And it's not about being smart. It's about being strategic. It's about being thorough. It's about customer focus on the overall objective. So some of the warning signs for a bad broker, if they are repping way more sellers than they are buyers, huge red flag. If they're bragging about, we have thousands of businesses listed to buy from, they're either running some sort of franchise model or they're running it like real estate and they think that getting listings is where money is made in business brokerage. Either way, massive, massive red flag. The next sort of warning sign is look at their contracts and see how they actually get paid commission. This is a really big one, where some of these brokerages will charge commissions for non-complete deals. Like, oh, you have an LOI, you have an agreed upon close date, you have a pending APA, asset purchase agreement. You name it. I mean, some of these companies, they have 12 different ways they can get paid. That's a massive red flag, because then there's more incentive for them to look at you just as a number, just churn and burn. Let's get the numbers through, right? What you really want is you want somebody who gets their main reward when you get your objective accomplished, if that makes sense. What does that mean? So let's say the brokerage charges a retainer. That's not the main reward. A retainer is really just to make sure you're serious and committed, and to cover some of the admin costs associated with servicing you as a client. Their main reward is going to come as a commission fee at the end as a broker. So make sure that's advantageous for you. It should always be slanted in your favor. It really should. So make sure that it's slanted for you. Kind of look at their experience. One of the other big red flags that I see is commercial realtors who think they sell businesses because they sell business real estate, and that's not true at all. I know a lady here in Houston who shut down multiple locations of her check cashing business in order to become a realtor, and she just sold the properties. She didn't sell the business inside, and ultimately it cost her over $2 million in lost income. But she just thought, as a realtor, well, that's all I do, right? Is I sell the building. And I've seen that happen with gas stations, with laundromats. I mean, you name it. They'll sell it as an income-producing real estate, and they won't sell the business inside of it. So I'm not saying all commercial realtors are bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying be careful, because there's this sort of cultural belief inside real estate that commercial realtors sell businesses, and they don't. So there's that. Those are the big three. Now, what you're looking for is a company that places your objectives first, a company that has experience doing this, a company that isn't just trying to get as many listings and get as many buyers as possible, but really craft deals. This is not an industry where you want to look for the cheap, fast internet version, hit buy and now you bought a business. That's not what you're looking for. And I completely understand we live in a world with one-click purchasing, and I'm going to buy my airplane ticket online. I'm going to cut out the travel agent. I'm going to buy my insurance online. I'm going to cut out the agent. I'm going to buy. Stop it. First, you should never buy insurance online, just as a side note. There are so many horror stories, because insurance, by its very nature, is designed to figure out ways not to pay you. And when you're just buying it online and you're not talking to an agent, huge problems can come from that. That's not even the issue or the topic of this episode, but just know that is a huge issue. Anyway, but this industry is not that. You should not want that. You should want thorough, depth, craft, just rich sort of envelopment almost in the process and the industry itself. That's what you're looking for. And there are some great ones out there. There really are. I just know that there are a rise of really, really, really crappy ones too. And you have to be really careful about that. So just kind of look at that and kind of weigh that when you're making your decision. Now, there's other sort of ancillary services. There's advisory services that go with this. Let's say, because we do this once in a while, we'll have somebody contact us and say, Josh, can you broker a deal in Arizona, for example? And no, we can't. We're not a brokerage in Arizona. Yeah, but I really want to work with you guys, and I have some experience owning a business. We can advise people. We can't negotiate for you. We can't contact the other side. We can't do any of that. But we can advise you. So there are options for situations like that, where at least you're learning and you're benefiting from the depth of our knowledge and experience. So that is definitely available to people globally, anywhere in the world. But one of the things that I'm really proud of, and this part is a little bit of a plug, but I think it's warranted. One of the things I really am proud of with Kingsbridge is not only do we have a really tight team sort of atmosphere here, and sure, we should sell the jerseys, but we offer additional services. Because I've been doing this. If you don't know my story, I guess Google me or something. But I've been an entrepreneur forever and a day. I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've been an adult. I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've done anything else. Anything. Been married, been a father, anything. And I've seen thousands of people. And I'm not just saying that. I've seen thousands of people become entrepreneurs through what I've been teaching outside of Kingsbridge, outside of Acquisitional Wealth, because this isn't my first rodeo. And I've watched as people have bought businesses and, hey, we now own it, and then not know what to do. One of the large examples that I use is if you're buying a business and it's an asset purchase agreement, the day you buy it, you have to fire everybody. And maybe we'll save why and how and all those sort of follow-up sort of topics off of that, but you do. And it's very common because it's not in the coaching book, it's not in the expert, mentor program online, and your lawyer didn't tell you either because your lawyer just assumed you knew. But when you do that, you have to fire everybody and then hire them back. And there's a way to do it, and there's a legal reason you have to do it. And I've seen a lot of business owners buy a business and not do that. And it costs them tremendously, not only financially, but legally. So that's just one example. So we have a program where we will actually hold your hand for 10 months after that sale, if you want us to, where we'll go through checklist every week. Checklist. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Now it's time to do this. So that's very common. And we're the only brokerage in the world that offers that. We also, actually, I'll just stop with that because I don't want it to sound like a shameless plug, but that's a big one. We also offer accounting services, but that's it. Okay. I won't tell you anything else we offer. Go to the website. You'll see a bunch of stuff that we offer. But anyway, I really do hope that this episode was beneficial. I know after the team episode, after that aired, I got a ton of questions about what does it look like to work with a broker? Why should I work with a broker? When does the broker communicate? All that sort of stuff that we covered today. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to get this episode in the can. And feel free to contact us. I've mentioned this before. We have over 70 shows already outlined. I don't use cue cards. I don't write these things, but we have the topics already picked out, over 70 of them. But I'm always looking for what you guys are wanting answers to. So let us know what sort of topics you want us to cover. If they're on the list, great. If they're not on the list, we'll add it. But definitely also make it to our Facebook page because we do these after episode follow-ups where it's with you guys. It's live and you guys can ask questions and, get detailed and get down to your specifics. Like, Josh, I'm on disability. Can I still own a business? Josh, I'm getting divorced. Should I buy it now or should I wait? All those sort of things. You can get as specific as you want. And, we do those every week after an episode airs. So if an episode airs this week, we're going to do a follow-up for that and do all those live questions and stuff. So anyway, hope that helps. Make sure you go to kingsbridgebrokers.com if you want more information. Follow us on Facebook. Just go to Facebook, find Acquisitional Wealth, and look for the logo, and that's us. So join that too. Like, share, subscribe, and until next time, just have fun. Have fun. Don't let this be stressful. Don't let this be stressful. Yes, it's different. Yes, it's life-changing. But just breathe.